and 2 with cohort B. But the whole point of this is to just talk about solutions and talk about what is working. So throughout the presentation, because people are kind of coming and going, I will repost the forms link for people to ask questions, but the chat is definitely closed today. We really want you to focus on what the teachers are sharing, and they will be turning their cameras on so you can see them and relate to them. But if everybody else would keep their cameras and mics off, we just want this to be a really good experience for everyone. So just know that nobody's an expert. This is what is working for them right now. Some things might work for you. Some things, when somebody shares, you might be like, oh, that would never work in my classroom. That's perfectly fine. It's all about personality and style. So those are just some of our norms for today.
Thank you, Steph. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump into our purpose for this panel. We are not going to sugarcoat it. We know that this is really hard. This is not teaching as normal. This is not what you've been, trained to do, what you've been doing for the majority of your career. And so this is hard. But the purpose is to share what's working. There are things that are working. And if you are, a 7th and 8th grade teacher and you are looking at the idea of coming back in this hybrid model, it's easy to focus on all of the things that are scary and terrifying right now. But really, this is an opportunity to share some experiences and some solutions that are working and that are making this a positive part of 2020. And so the other thing is, we're collaborating at this point because a lot of the anxiety in coming back comes from the unknown and not knowing what to expect in this hybrid scenario. So what we are hoping today is that you will come away from it with some ideas, with some answers, some solutions to anticipated problems. While this is really hard and we're not trying to make things, toxically positive, we do want to acknowledge that we have to be solution oriented. We have to focus on what we can do and what we can fix, because if we only dwell on what's not working, all we're going to see is what's not working. So we're going to focus on the positive and kind of push through. And I thought this quote really was a great way to kick that off. So now let's go ahead and meet our panelists. I know that in this setting, we're kind of really getting familiar with each other and the buildings because, obviously you have one IIC who bounces back and forth. So we do a lot of these activities, these Wednesday workshops together. So let's go ahead and kick off our meeting our panelists. Mr. Dodge, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Mr. Dodge. I am a teacher at Grafton Middle School. I've been teaching for 14 years. I've done 4 years at the high school and 10 years at the middle school. I am currently teaching U.S. History 1 at the 6th grade level.
Thank you. Mr. Frazier.
My name is Rob Frazier, and I started teaching at Yorktown Middle School in 1988. And this morning we established that that was 1 month shy of Lori's existence. So I've been at it for a while. Of course, I taught at Grafton for 10 years, and then I was out of the county, and now I'm back. So delighted to be sharing some insights with you today. And I've learned a lot by what was said earlier today and just meeting with this group of folks.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rob. Andrea.
Hey everyone, Andrea Lee. I have been with the division for 19 years. Been at Grafton most of that time, though I had the pleasure of working at York Middle for a year with those fabulous folks over there, and I'm happy to see some familiar faces. I'm teaching 6th grade science this year, though 16 of those years were spent teaching math. Happy to be here, you guys, learning and growing with y'all.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Schneider.
Hey guys, this is my 10th year teaching band. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade band at Yorktown Middle. This is my 2nd year at Yorktown Middle. And like everybody else, I still have my pen ready to learn what I can and to offer ideas when I can. So this will be great.
Thank you. And last but never least, Miss Williams.
My name is Nelly Williams, and I'm an English teacher here at Grafton Middle School. I've been teaching for 28 years. So I'm an old lady teacher, but I'm not as old as Rob.
Correct.
And
Correct.
And I actually, when I started in York County, I was at Yorktown Middle School for 4 years. And then I have been here at Grafton for the balance. So that's it.
All right. Thank you. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to, my screen looks a little unconventional right now. I'm trying to make sure we can keep our questions up for anyone who jumps in, but I also want you to be able to see our fabulous panelists when they are speaking. And so let's go ahead and jump in and get started. So what's been the best part of coming back in the building with your students? Who
Well,
wants to kick us off?
You want me to go ahead and start?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I think all of us know that the best part of this whole hybrid situation is actually getting to see our students. The cool thing has been that the first 2 days of the first cohort, they were almost shell shocked, but it's been really interesting to see that in the 2 days this week that they started acting more like normal, regular sixth graders, which I know is bizarre for us to want middle school behavior that we have shut down for years, but it was kind of endearing. And I know this morning Aaron mentioned it's like during lunch when you hear them talking and sounding like it's a real school. That has been the best part. Another good thing for me is it's made me feel like a first year teacher again for the second time this year, because I've had to I feel like I'm in a brand new situation, and it's like you have to rise to the occasion. So that's actually been a good part for me too, is like I have to learn something new all over again, and I really don't mind that. So that's it.
Thank you. Anyone want to piggyback on that before we move on?
I'll jump in and just say that the energy, we as teachers, we feed off that energy. So to have them all back, I love what Rob said about how you kind of wanted them to act like sixth graders. You wanted a little bit of excitement because it just made everything so excited. They were so excited to play their horns. Of course, we're going to do it outside, but to do it, to be ready to actually make music together. They wanted that communal aspect of it. And so that's what I think they're most excited about. And that was nice to see on their faces.
I think that here at Grafton, the kids that I've been working with have been so excited to be back in the building. I mean, they act like I wasn't really prepared for their level of excitement. Of course, they're sixth graders, but they are just so excited to be in this new building, this new place, back at school, and their enthusiasm is really infectious. So I might have been feeling down the first day or two, which I'll be honest, I was. But the kids are so excited that it can't help but kind of motivate me at least and get me excited.
And I want to piggyback on that. I think it's good for kids to be with other kids, and I'm with Nelly. I was not the most enthusiastic about coming back, but when we get to be a good thing about 2020, right? 2020 has just been kind of wild, and that for us as adults, but for these kids, they have carried, many of the same burdens that we have as adults, and just to see them be in school and be kids, and their enthusiasm and excitement about being with other 11 and 12 and 13-year-olds, because for those 8 hours, they're not around their screaming siblings. They're not, I shush, my 8-year-old sometimes out of the way because I'm trying to do work, I'm trying to teach. They get to be kids. So we get to be part of a good part of their day. We get to be a part of that good thing that's happening in 2020. And that's been very fulfilling as a educator as well.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and move on to our next question. Probably one of the biggest questions, one of the hottest topics that we hear when we start talking about going back into this hybrid model. How in the world do you manage the kids in the room and the kids at home? How do you make sure nobody's getting lost and everyone gets what they need?
So I can speak to this. So I have opted to keep things as simple as possible. I have a table set up at the front of my classroom. I use my laptop from the division. I keep it low. And that's so I can see all the kids in the room. I have everybody log into our Teams meeting, so we're all there on Teams, and I can look over my computer, make eye contact, talk to the kids in the room. I can go back, look at the camera, talk to the kids on the camera. I use the chat a lot, so my kids at home are writing in the chat, they're communicating that way. The kids in the room sometimes they write in the chat, which is hilarious, and we all laugh because they could just say it out loud and we could all hear it. So it actually isn't that hard to manage both groups of kids if you just kind of treat it as one big group. So that has worked. And then when I get up and move around the room, I don't carry my laptop with me. It's just me. But the kids know if they've got a question or need something from home, they see my chair is empty and they'll just unmute and they'll just call my name. They'll just say, Miss Williams, and I'll respond, hold on, I'll be there in a minute. And so it's actually been pretty easy to manage these two groups. 6th grade.
I'll join in there as well. For managing the kids in the room, one of the things that I have found very useful is using our PBIS approach. And for 6th grade for history, we are concentrating on leadership in the building. And so I always like to try to create leaders within the classroom, as well as all facets of the building. And so what I have done is I allow the students, I assign one student has a presenter role in the Teams meeting as the class begins. So somebody that's in the classroom with me, I go ahead and make them a presenter for the day, and they will accept people into the lobby. They will stop me if somebody has their hand raised or somebody says something in the chat, because we know students at home are sometimes having trouble unmuting. We know that sometimes they cannot, don't have a microphone possibly as well. So whereas a lot of students will yell out, like Ms. Williams said, some students can't do that. So I have that student will be the presenter for the day. They will let people into the lobby so that students aren't stressed out at home if I don't get to the computer in time to let them in. Also, it allows someone to read the chat if I need to have them do that. So by creating a presenter, I'm creating leadership in the classroom, and it also gives me somebody to help me out, like a moderator, like Ms. Bean and Ms. Donatelli are doing today. It gives me somebody in the classroom as my moderator.
Mr. Frazier, do you want to share how that little tip has helped you as well?
Absolutely. This is when I got kicked out this morning. But so on Monday when we met, Aaron had shared that tidbit, and I said, this is a brilliant idea. This is what I need to do. So yesterday I tried it and it worked like a charm. So this is two things. This is the brilliance of the collaboration that we're doing. And I love that we're collaborating between the schools. But yeah, that was a great tip. It was so simple. And, I have a class leader now, and it made all the difference in how smoothly my class ran yesterday.
Thank you. I just thought that was so cool when you mentioned that this morning, that even in just this, even just in trying to get this ready to present today, even our panelists were benefiting from these tips and tricks.
Yeah, and I hope this is a mindset that we keep going forward in the future, that we're sharing these ideas like this, because, like I said, I feel like a first-year teacher, but in a good way, that I'm learning a whole lot to make, myself better. So.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to try to put GMS and YMS together whenever I can, because I think it really is just a great, it's a great opportunity that we have.
Absolutely.
So let's keep moving and let's talk about that first day. You come back in, and we at some point you get to the point where you could do the first day speech with your eyes closed, backwards, forwards, upside down, but probably not this first day. This was probably a little different. So what new class norms did you feel like you needed to introduce? What procedures did you review that are maybe out of your normal, typical first day spiel? And was there anything that you wish you would have established or started from that first day?
So for the new class norms and procedures, one thing that the English teachers did is that we made the decision for the first day back, we gave our at-home kids asynchronous work. So we only had our in-school kids on the first day. And so we were able to focus all of our attention, everything on those in-person kids. And I think that was huge. I started class the first day, almost kind of like the first day of school. I had a PowerPoint and we really focused on safety, and we talked about safety. And we talked a lot about masks. And that's where I kind of did like direct instruction almost about masks, why we wear masks, how we wear masks, when you can take your mask off. So we talked about social distancing. So there was this presentation. It was the very first thing we did. And we talked about all of those expectations. And I think that that was important to kind of set the stage and set the tone for how we were going to be moving forward. And the kids were very receptive to that. And I really emphasized how masks work, why we wear them, and how I wear my mask to protect you, and you wear your mask to protect me and the people around us. And they were very receptive to that, I think. But yeah, I just started right off the bat with procedures, norms, all around safety and that.
And you started early, right?
Yes, yeah. So I had started talking to the kids probably the week before. Tiana had said, start talking about this. So and I think a lot of us were telling the kids a week out, here's what to expect, bring your computer, make sure it's charged, bring your charging cord, have an extra mask. And I talked about it every single day. Not trying to make too much of it because you don't want your virtual academy kids to feel bad, like they're missing out. But definitely preparing the kids, talking to them so they know what to expect.
Does anyone want to add anything to that? Your new class norms or procedures?
I would like to say that I think for all the 7th and 8th grade teachers, I think what the English department did at Grafton is brilliant. That should have been countywide, that there is one day where it's the in-class kids are doing just learning the in-class things, and the kids that are at home are, all asynchronous. That's brilliant, Nelly. I wish I had talked to you before today. So
yeah, I was going to say the same thing, that it really is a true first day. And don't be afraid, those of you, my 7th and 8th grade teachers that are, one day going back to in-person teaching, don't be afraid to take that time to truly build that class rapport, establish relationships with you as the teacher and students with themselves. I kind of sat on the other side of that, where I was concerned about my in-person and at-home kids having the exact same experience or very similar experiences. So I kind of sat on the side of pushing forward, taking a little bit of a break to just give them a moment, give those in-person kids a moment to just kind of, here we are back in school. Where do we find things in this class? Who is in my class? Little goofy things like making nameplates and getting to know you activities as best you can, when you're 6 feet apart. I would encourage you to take the time to do those things. Instruction is super important, but just like we do on any first day, giving the students and yourselves a day to just, like I said, establish and set up those relationships, and those, even those procedures is super important. And at the end of the day, when that student comes to your class for the first time, they're not going to pay as close attention to the setup of your room, which I was focused on, what's in Canvas, what cool technology feature are we using today, as much as they do about, who is in my class. I get to see my friends today. I get to meet my teachers today. That's really what's going to hook them that first day. So don't be afraid to make that first in-person experience just as, warm and catchy, for lack of a better word, for them. That's super important. So do take the time for that. I wish I had.
Miss Lee, I think you've got Mr. Dodge all, sorry, my phone's ringing. I think you got Mr. Dodge all choked up on that when I saw him wiping away a tear. Very moving. Thank you. Let's go ahead and move on to question 4. How do you start class in a way that involves and engages both groups? Or do you not? Do you just keep them separate? What works best here?
So something, I'll pipe in here too, and then I'll be quiet, you guys. Something that I did even before we went back, or we went in person, or we went to a hybrid schedule, was I always start my science class with music. It's just a staple, oh, it's Miss Lee's class. We know there's going to be music. So even when students came in person, or when they come in person, I have music playing, for my teens, or my students on teams, and my students coming in. Like, they know, listen for the music. That's how you find Miss Lee. So that's just been something that I think was just a little comfort thing. I know this is the same regardless of where I am. When the music starts, class time is open. When it stops, we're about to go through our agenda. So just setting those staples ahead of time kind of brings that home experience into the in-person experience. Some things to get them both engaged. We played games. We did just a quick brain pop quiz, but girls versus boys. That way the girls at home and the girls in person, they're collaborating, they're working together. The boys are doing the same. Jeopardy, you can do a Jeopardy game, girls versus boys, or break them in groups, but they're still, collaborating with each other regardless of where they are. Those are just some things. I'm thinking of my notes. What else have I done? Those are some things that are off the top of my head that has worked really nicely to build a cohesive. Oh, I thought of one more. So together mode in teams, when you can choose, whether you're looking at gallery or together. My students, I know it's just me, but my students can have a tendency to, turn their camera off, and you're not sure, are they there, or are they in the kitchen, getting a snack, or outside jumping on the trampoline. But one thing that I've done is just, real quick, we're in the middle of class, turn your cameras on, get into together mode, and everybody try to high five each other. So, I share my screen so they can, try to high five the person above them, or give themselves a little fist bump, or, do a little fist bump down there, or turn some music on and we're all dancing to the same thing in together mode. So not tied to an SOL, not tied, heavily to instruction, but just something that makes us feel like people. We're people, we're in this together, in the same class. We're a little science family, and that has helped to connect us, even though we're in different locations.
Miss Lee, I missed this opportunity this morning. I don't know what I was thinking. Let's go ahead and get into together mode real quick. Anyone and everyone that can turn their camera on, let's go ahead and fist bump, high five, whoever you can.
I got you, Miss Allen.
Okay, Miss Allen, high five. Woo!
Over here on top, high five.
Oh, we got it, Bridget.
Mr. Dodge is shaking his head. This is crazy.
Well, while Miss Lee was talking about it, Mr. Frazier and I were actually doing it, so it was funny.
Too fun. All right, I just had I mean, we just had to do that while you're talking about what fun that is. Absolutely. And what a great way to get people to turn their cameras back on, as I go ahead and turn mine off. But very fun idea. That was definitely the first I'd heard it this morning when Miss Lee shared, and I thought that was just such a fantastic idea. Mr. Schneider, you have some other great thoughts on getting your kids in and engaged right from the start.
Yeah, so I know a lot of kids obviously don't, or at least say they don't have a working webcam, but for the most part, all of them can at least speak over a mic. So I know you all have access to just printing off a roster, and that's how you could take your roll if you wanted to. But I like to start by actually calling roll, but instead of a student saying here or present or yo or what's up, I always have a weird question of the day. So an example would be the recent one was, have you ever eaten an insect or a worm? And if so, when I call your name, just yell out what it was that you've eaten. So I'd say like Brian, and he'd say, nope, nothing, disgusting. And then I'd say, Andrea, and she would say, a worm, just a worm, and then I'd go down the list, and that's how we found out that one of our flute players has actually eaten a cockroach, which is pretty gross. So it's interesting to get to know your kids that way. So the most common thing that's been eaten is actually those scorpion lollipops. I don't know if you guys have heard of those, but a lot of those kids have had scorpion lollipops before. But I always have a weird question like that ready, so that when I call their name, they can just yell something out. Just you want to make sure that you don't lose a lot of class time with that. So if you're going to do that, they're just saying kind of one thing and then we move on, as opposed to everybody give us a 2-minute story. So yeah, that's one thing we do. The other thing, just real quick on the last question about first day things, is real quick just to say that you also got to be mindful that we're trying to get kids to buy in. It takes a while. I use the term buy in. That's what I say when I talk to my wife. Like sometimes I'll come home and I'll say, I did it. And she'll say, what? I said, they bought in. 6th grade day 2, they bought in, they're in. And she'll say, what do you mean? I said, that means that they want it. They're into bands. Like they know, they got the feelings, they got that good, they heard the music, they heard, and they're ready to rock and roll. And so you all know what it looks like in your class. And we all teach different subjects, but there's a moment where they see your passion, and that doesn't translate very well over a camera sometimes. So when you see them face to face, you can do a lot of things, both physically and, environmentally, that you can't do over a computer to see if they can get your passion and realize why it is they signed up for the class that they're in to begin with. Or, sometimes they're forced to be in the class, but they can still learn your passion. So think about those things as you go forward.
Such great advice. Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Let's go ahead and move on to our next question. One that we hear from lots of, this was a big question from our 6th grade teachers before you all went back. And so when we talk about technology, what does it look like? How did you set up your technology for that in-person and at-home learner? I mean, right now I've got 2 laptops, an iPad, and a phone running just to keep this going. If I had, kids in front of me, I'd be struggling. So what are your secrets? What's your advice?
Well, I will say that I am like low tech as possible. I tell the kids I'm an old lady teacher and I just have old lady teacher ways, and they think that's pretty funny, but it's kind of true. So like I said before, I just have my laptop, that is, my division laptop, and I have a document camera, and that's all I use. I don't have my phone out. I don't have an iPad out. I'm not hooked up with those HDMI cable things to stuff in the room. I don't do any of that. I don't walk around with my laptop. I'm just kind of low tech. And so that's just how it works. And it really feels like we're all in the room together, except every now and then there'll be this little disembodied voice coming from the front of the room going, Mrs. Williams, I need some help. And I'll just call out wherever I am in the room. I just call back, okay, I'll be right there. And then I, circle around and come back. And the kids are very patient. They're used to working kind of in this environment where they're on the computer. So they're used to having to wait and having that hand up, or just calling out and having to wait. So that's been working for me right now. I did look at the HDMI cable the other day and I actually touched it. And so I might actually ask Lori to come and help me with that. So I don't know, but that's a little scary for me. So I like to keep my persona of being the old lady teacher.
Y'all know my favorite GIF is the one where the girl spits out her coffee in her mug, and that was almost what just happened when you said you touched your HDMI cord. That's so fantastic.
I did. I picked it up. I like.
And there are lots of different ways to go about it. I'm going to let Mr. Schneider talk about his 2 device setup. But really, there are lots of different ways to go about it. You can use your iStation. You can have that second screen running. So you don't have to embrace the HDMI cord if you're not feeling it. There are lots of other solutions as well.
We have those, there's that matrix box that's inside of our iStation. And I swear I go over like a couple times a day and I just open the thing and I look at it. And then
oh my goodness, Ms. Williams, you're killing me today. Too funny. Mr. Schneider, you want to talk about what setup you use?
Yeah, so I kind of go back and forth sometimes between the way that Miss Williams would go and then the way Miss Lee, maybe in a second, Miss Lee can talk about the way you share too. But see, the issue here in band is you want to be able to play the music, and that music, over the speakers, nice and loud, because the kids love that. And yet that's going generally through the iStation. You also want to be able to present over top, and that goes through the iStation. So you say, well, okay, I'll use the HDMI. Well, probably 30% of you that are in here have either a MacBook or a PC that's old enough that doesn't have an HDMI. Well, then you say, okay, what are other options? You can get little pigtails. They sell them that are converters. Okay, if you're willing to spend your own money to get that, that's one thing you can do. But another thing you could do is you can open up. And this was kind of a revelation for me. I didn't understand somehow that you can have Canvas open on as many devices as you want, and it doesn't somehow blow up. You can have Teams open too, for that matter. You can be in Teams logged in on multiple devices. So you can log into Teams on your iStation and on your laptop. Then you can share your screen on one device onto the other. So you could share, for example, onto your iStation, or you can share from your iStation onto your laptop, if that somehow helps. And so if you think of it that way, there's ways around it to where you can speed yourself up. I would just caution to say this, that the goal for me at least is to go as fast as possible. I want to teach as much time teaching as possible without tech problems. So sometimes, and some days, the easiest thing for me is to do the Miss Williams approach. I'm going to have one thing open, and then if I need to play music, maybe I'll take a little aux cord and stick it outside of my computer and go into some speaker somewhere and just play it that way while the kids are on Canvas. So yeah, that was probably a little confusing what I said. Miss Lee, can you make any sense of what I just said?
I think you did wonderful. I would not add anything to that. Other than that, if you're doing both devices, watch your sound, because you will get that, microphone squeak. And I've learned the hard way, at least once a day. I've got my sound on my iStation going, interfering with my sound from my laptop. But it does allow you mobility. So, and quick thing, do not let Miss Williams fool you. She is not the old teacher lady. She is. I run to her for my tech questions. So I'm not fooled by you, Miss Williams.
She does play it well, but she's actually very tech savvy. She just doesn't want anyone to know, but we're going to go ahead and out her on that one. Mr. Dodge, you were speaking earlier about your solutions for charging. I thought you had some really great ideas for helping students kind of think through the charging aspect during the day.
Yeah, the biggest concern I had with technology, I am one of the young male teachers, I guess, not old lady. What's a young, I don't know, you go male-y teacher? I don't know. Gentleman-y? I don't know. But anyways, I am fairly comfortable with technology. I actually love having 2 screens in my classroom at the iStation with my personal laptop and then the iStation computer. It's been awesome. But the big concern I had was chargers. So students keeping their laptops charged throughout the day, which is an issue. We're not going to lie about that. It is definitely an issue to get it through the day with that. As you're setting up your classrooms, you are going to be spreading your students out as much as possible anyway, and you're going to have them in different spots than they've ever been before. Especially, I have 15 and 16 class students in my class at a time. So we're using the whole part of the room. So with that, I have desks around the outside of the wall as well as in the middle because I have to. But I encourage students to charge their devices overnight. And then when we get into the day, I also still encourage them, if you're on the outside of the wall, to use the outlets and charge your computer. And that's one of the biggest things to try to convince sixth graders is that even though you're at 90% or 100% or 80%, you can still charge your computer. So that way, when you get into third block and fourth block and you're in the middle of the room of that class, that you still have a full charge. So that's one thing that I would also stress with that. Ms. Williams spoke earlier on a great idea that she had, that because you do have students that come in consistently that don't have their computers charged. And I'll let her share that idea with you, unless you want me to.
So you start to figure out right away, like the kids who come in every morning and their computer's dead. I mean, they're the kids who never have a pencil. They're the kids who just are not prepared for class. They don't bring their charging cord, whatever. And I always I've started having those kids sit closest to the power strip. So I do have a couple power strips around the room and there's an outlet on one side. So I do seat them. I've started moving them around. So the kids who need to charge, I just put them right next to it so they know. The kids have been great though about sharing their charging cords. Sometimes they'll work. Kids will move to the back if they need to, but having power issues is definitely something that's going to happen, especially during the later part of the day. So definitely be thinking about how are you going to manage when their computers start to die, because it will 100% happen.
Thank you all for sharing. Let's go ahead and keep moving. I thought those were some great ideas. Definitely hot topic with teachers thinking about coming back, just as this one is. And talk to us about your cleaning procedure. I think a lot of teachers are worried as to how am I going to clean all of my desks and chairs. But Miss Williams is our self-proclaimed queen of the clean. And so Miss Williams, you want to share what you have accomplished in this area?
I've been telling everybody this is my greatest achievement since we've been back to school, is that I can clean 22 desks in under 3 minutes. I'm telling you. And like, if you knew me and knew my house, you would be amazed. You would be like, oh my God, she's incredible. But I was very worried about this. I was like, how in the world am I going to clean all of these desks and sanitize and use the restroom? Like, this is craziness. But the reality is it's not that hard. So we have plenty of time, when class ends. So I have the kids, we just have them get up, they pack up all their stuff, they move to the perimeter of the room, spray bottle, every desk, 'cause I have 22 desks. So I'll do 2 sprays on every desk and I just walk around. And then I've got a great cloth and I just wipe everything down, hit the chairs. And it actually does not take that long. And I'll get like the doorknobs and stuff if I can, and I can do it super fast. And I'll let Rob tell about our chair thing. But he's muted.
Rob, you're muted.
Yeah, even in hybrid, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes, I do that.
Yes, I had some background noise here that I didn't need to share with everybody. Phone's ringing. So, so this morning, Nelly mentioned that, the best way to see which desks have not been cleaned is for kids to have their chairs unpushed. And I mentioned that, for 32 years, it was the bane of my existence when kids would leave the classroom and not push in their chairs. And now what do? I find myself saying, make sure you do not push your chair in. So this has been a paradigm shift where it's a lot easier if the kids do not push their chairs in, so you can tell where kids have been seated. And then, you have to clean those. And then once you clean those spaces, you push the chair in. So It's a good visual reminder of what needs to be cleaned. So
See,
it's been a big change.
This is what happens when you become old lady teacher and old man teacher, is that you think you're going to remember who was at what desk and what desk was not. No. 10 minutes, I'm like, oh, was the kid there? Did somebody? And I'm asking the kids, I'm going, did somebody sit here? And they're all looking at me like I've lost my mind. I'm like,
because we had them line up around the room while we're cleaning. So yeah.
Thank you. I love that. It is kind of funny. And I'm sure that if anyone would have told you last November that this year the big thing would be telling kids not to push their chair, and you probably would not have believed us.
Never.
But that has become a very useful little hack in this cleaning during this season of 2020. So obviously this question more in my wheelhouse. We have been blessed this year with lots of new technology and ed tech tools purchased by the division. So what's making a difference? What are you using that is making your life easier in the classroom?
All right, I'll go ahead and start off here. I love the technology aspect of it all. It is great. It is probably also really frustrating at times too, because we're trying to find new ways of doing all of this stuff that we've traditionally done, but everything requires, a login or you to sign up for a trial or whatever it may be. But there are a couple things that I have found that have worked really well. I've loved Nearpod. That's why, like listening to some of the presenters here, having screens up and Teams up on both computers and students in the classroom, not on the Teams meeting and stuff like that. I like them on the Teams meeting because I love them to be able to do the Nearpod. I love them to be able to be interactive with that. When we're in the classroom, I know I've seen the popsicle sticks that people use, so you call on everybody, and there's different ways, you're checking off people to make sure you call on them. With a Nearpod lesson, you get a response from everybody for every single question. So I kind of love that aspect of it, and you can share, and students get a little goofy in there, and it shows a different side of the students that you may not see in a traditional classroom because they get to interact even more with every single question. So I've loved that. GimKit, I love a loud classroom. I don't like quiet. It scares me. I don't like students sitting down. So telling a student that they have to sit in a desk 6 feet apart from everybody else, we can't stand up and run around the room or around the school to go pull pranks on Miss Donatelli or anything like that. It really scares me. So trying to figure out how to do activities in this. I've really, really, really enjoyed GimKit. It is an online gaming platform that you can use. You can create assignments with it ahead of time as well, that students have to reach certain goals or certain time limits. Miss Dupree and I, my team teacher in 6th grade, we did an entire 6th grade review activity before one of our tests, and we'll probably do it again soon. GimKit also has a ink feature, which is for English teachers. They're dropping in January. So I submitted to get a pre-code. They're giving out codes as a soft opening to see what that is like, but I'm excited to see what that has to offer as well. But there've been a lot of different tech tools. If you have a chance, I know that in August, coming into these meetings and these Canvas trainings and all this stuff, it was a bit overwhelming, even for somebody that has a young teacher, to kind of wrap your head around of how is this going to look, and you're trying to think of, how am I going to actually do this in my classroom? But now that we're here and we understand Canvas, and now that we're back in the school, and so that fear is kind of gone and everything there. Now our Wednesdays, we have a little bit more time, instead of all the meetings to try to make us busy throughout the day. Last Wednesday, I found myself with a little bit of time, and I went back and looked at all of the stuff that Ms. Donatelli had posted from the beginning of the year, and take a look back through the information, back through the slides, back through the trainings, and just see what I may have missed because I was so engrossed in something else, and trying to figure that out because I can learn this later. And there's a lot of good tools there. As much as it hurts me to say, Ms. Donatelli has done a phenomenal job this year. She did a good job. All right. That's why I do appreciate Ms. Bean is in here to help her out and, help her hold her hand as we get through this. But it's been awesome.
In case anyone didn't notice, Nelly calling Aaron a young teacher has been the highlight of his day. He's now worked that into every single answer that he has. So that apparently
look
is
at this
his
receding
big takeaway
hairline.
from
Like
today's
young, like
PT.
I'm going to take everything I can get.
Yeah, no, you're not that young. Aaron. All right, let's go ahead and move on. We've got a couple of questions left.
Can I share one more tech tool? It's real quick.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Miss Lee. Absolutely.
So Nelly taught me about this this week. So from the old lady teacher, just kidding. She's tech savvy. So for all those folks that have Word documents that you've already made and you do not want to recreate the wheel because ain't nobody got time for that, it's pretty easy to take a Word document, upload it into your OneDrive cloud, and then embed that document right into your Canvas page. So if you are not, I don't want to go too far off of the beaten path. I'm comfortable with, just a good old fashioned worksheet. Let's not abandon that, altogether. There are still ways to pretty easily upload what you already made last year into, this year's way of teaching. And I did that for the first time this week and it was awesome. So just wanted to throw that out there too. In addition to all these fun activities and games and things like that, we got some good old fashioned, ways to do things as well.
Absolutely. This is not the time to throw the baby out with the bathwater. That is for sure. All right. So in this hybrid model, paras, co-teachers, small group testing, remediation, what's it look like? How are you making this work for your students?
I'm thinking, I was just remembering how when you asked this question this morning at the 10 o'clock session, you asked the question and there was this big long pause, right? And honestly, I'm going to say that for me, this is an area that we're still kind of figuring out. I have a co-teacher with me. First block is an inclusion class. I have a great special ed teacher with me. And we're figuring this out still. Like the other day, I think it was on Friday, we were, she had a small group in the room and we were working and one of the at-home kids calls out and says, "Miss Fisher, will you take me into a private meeting, please, and do this work with me?" And she and I just looked at each other like across the room and we managed to figure it out. But after class, we were like, we got to figure this. So the answer is I don't really have an answer. So I'm just being real. I mean, that's just something we're working on.
I'm with you, Miss Williams. I can say one thing that's a little unconventional because it's more of a resource to help all students. For me in science, work completion was is still a challenge for students. So I have asked our para who is in class with me to at times pull a student who, might be general ed, might be one of our SPED students, but really just needs to finish some work, and to pull them in a small group out of our class so that while we're doing review activity or introduction activity, just to utilize them to, in addition to doing small group assessment and small group remediation, to just help with work completion.
I think the biggest thing, I would agree, I don't know that any of us have this figured out with the pairs and support yet. I think the biggest thing is just communicate with your para, communicate with your support. We have had a lot of training this year, and our pairs, our SPED support have had trainings too, but not as much as we have had. So they may not be as comfortable with certain things that we are, or they may be very comfortable with things that we are not, depending on where we're at with things. So I think communication is going to be a big key here as we move forward. So communicate more effectively than ever with the people helping you out, because you can definitely work together in ways we haven't done before.
Thank you. And I really appreciate each of you being really open and transparent about this, that, we're a week and a half in. There is no way that we've got all the bugs worked out. We've not solved all the world's problems in the first week and a half of hybrid learning. But I do want to shout out these teachers who continue to look for new ways and to continue to problem solve for their kids. Rob, 32 years of teaching, and he is still trying new things. He's still trying to make sure that every kid gets what they need. And as do all of these teachers on this panel. So we knew going into this question that the answer was, we didn't really have an answer. And, we wanted to share that with all of you here joining us for this panel, because it's something that, Andrea shared, how that's helped get the work completion done and how that's beneficial. And we have some ideas and some strategies, but there's lots that we're still learning and that we're still exploring. And we hope that you take from this that, no one's going to expect perfection. This is hard, and that's okay. So I really appreciate all of our panelists being so real with us on that one. Before we wrap up with question 10, kind of our big finish, this is another one that seems to be a very popular question. I think everybody worries a little bit before they enter this hybrid model. Well, what if the kids are taking their masks off? Or what if they won't socially distance? What kind of behavior issues are there? Can you speak to what this has looked like in your classroom for the few class periods that you've been with your students in person?
I will say that this has not been an issue really at all. I think by starting with really clear guidelines and expectations for the masks has helped a lot. We tell the kids, or I tell the kids, they can have a mask break. We're not saying that you have to wear your mask forever and ever and ever. And I also tell them, I don't like wearing the mask either, so I'm we're in it together. They can have a mask break, and we talk about what that looks like. With the social distancing, they do need to be reminded. And so we talk about putting our arms out, and that's not 6 feet. But if everybody has their arms out, you shouldn't be able to touch anyone. Otherwise, you're too close. I haven't had any behavior issues at all. I think the kids are trying to do the right thing. They forget sometimes, and they need us to remind them. So I think having real clear expectations and kind of reinforcing that has really worked, at least for me and for the kids I've seen, at Grafton on the hall.
And that when the kids are talking about how even the cafeteria food is so amazing, that, they're just so happy to be back, that they're really willing to do just about anything at this point. Did anyone else want to add to that on what your experience has been?
I'll go ahead and talk about it. The whole thing to me, if you guys, for those of you who don't know, I'm also the athletic director at Grafton Middle School. So we started sports a few weeks ago before we even came to school. And this was one of my biggest fears, just like a lot of teachers have fears of, or apprehension of coming back and what it's going to look like. I definitely had those. And I think Nelly used a good word here. And I think it was earlier, it was Mr. Frazier did, expectations. If we just all establish the same expectations with the masks, with all of these, we're going to be fine. Before, I was one of those teachers that allowed students to use cell phones in my room when other teachers didn't, or some teachers allow students to eat or have candy in their classroom traditionally. The mask idea isn't what some people are doing. Everybody in the school has the same expectations. You are going to wear your mask. You're going to wear them the majority, if not all of the class. You're not going to move around the room without a mask on. You're going to use your hand sanitizer. We all have the same expectations, and everybody's on board with these expectations, and everybody is supporting these expectations. And to be honest, the students have the same fears that we do. All right. So a lot of these students are coming from households. Just because their parents are sending them doesn't mean that their parents are comfortable with it. All right. My son went back to school before we did. And, the first week there, we got the email from DARE like everybody else did. And it was, are we bad parents if we send him, or are we bad parents if we keep him home? Because you want him to be in the school with other people, with their friends, learning in the normal environment. but at the same time, we want to keep them safe. So our students are feeling the same thing that we are feeling as teachers. A lot of our parents are feeling the same thing as well. So they understand the expectations. Their parents have the same expectations of them. They have the expectations from us as well. So this has not been an issue for most of us at Grafton. I think I don't want to speak for everybody, but I would say all of us at Grafton, because our students know what's expected of them and everybody's enforcing those expectations. And the students are also forcing it on each other that this is what is expected of you. And it's been awesome that everybody has, seeing all the division in our society, everybody in our school, and students included, they are all supporting this, and there hasn't been any issues around this safety issue.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and jump over to our last question. We are running a little bit out of time, but let's go ahead and talk through this one. And what's the feedback from kids? How are they feeling about being back in the building, back in school? And what impact has this had on them from your perspective?
I would say that all the kids, it seems like all the kids, but most of the kids that I've talked to, they are so happy to be back at school. They are just elated. Like, we did a tour of the school on their first day, and they're walking around our school like, oh my gosh, it was like they were at the Plaza Hotel in New York City. I mean, they were just over the moon, and they kept saying to me, I love this place. Gosh, I love this place. And it really made me kind of see everything from their perspective and through their eyes, and kind of it's really, the past week and a half has really made me, like, I was not happy about going back. I'll be honest. Like, I really like working from home. I'm a homebody. I like this. And so going back, I was not really excited about it, but I've been surprised at how much I've been enjoying it. And it's because of the kids. It's because they're so happy to be there. And it's made me kind of see, it's made me realize again why I'm a teacher, why I like being a teacher, why I like kids and what I do. So yeah, it's been really nice, and it's been kind of fun. I hate to say it. Is that okay to say that it's been a little bit fun?
It has been fun.
Yeah. Like, I'm at this point in my career where I think about retirement probably more than I think about anything else. But this past week and a half, I find myself not thinking like that anymore. It's interesting.
I'll jump in
We're
with
not
something.
letting you retire, Miss Williams. Don't worry.
Something just a little interesting here is one of my administrators, Christine Swanson, was in my room right when I set things up, and in the performing arts, kind of, Aaron, you'll know what I'm talking about a little bit. Whether it's gym or performing arts or whatever, you got to be 10 feet apart, not just 6 feet apart. And the room looked really weird. I mean, we had kids right along the wall just to fit the kids in the chairs. And it was kind of this idea of like, wow, they're going to be excited to be back in, but they're going to be so far from each other. It's just going to feel weird. So what I tried to do is set up stations to make it more exciting for them. And I think it worked. So, for example, a percussion station, when they sit down, it's not just a chair. They have a trap stand next to them, or at least a stool where they can put their computer. They have, of course, their music stand out in front of them. They also have like a marimba. And then they have a concert snare next to them. So they have this like a station, and it feels like they're like cockpit, I guess you could say, And so for them, it's like, wow, this is so cool. I get to come to school, and this is way better than if I'm at home, because I'm looking forward to being in my station, And it doesn't look as weird,
I want to piggyback what Nelly said real quick, and I feel like we're back in the day when kids really liked coming to school. Like right now, since they've been home for almost a year for Grafton Middle School because of our fire, like they are excited about coming to school again. So like we have this beautiful opportunity to harness that, like it's whenever it's a rare thing, a rare treat to come to school, for these kids, they're only coming 2 days a week. They really are excited about it. Lori put together a Padlet last week, and every single student that responded, there were 2 general comments. It was either I'm in school and I love it, or I'm not in school and I kind of wish I was. So they're really excited about being with their friends and seeing their teachers.
Well, you all are so fabulous. I can't imagine how they wouldn't be excited to see you, with the exception of Mr. Dodge. I want to thank our panelists so very, very much. I hope all of you joining us realize that these teachers not only gave up an hour at this time, but they did this morning. They met on Monday to talk about this. They've been prepping and thinking of things that they could share that would make this transition for your hybrid experience easier. So a huge, huge shout out to these 5 phenomenal teachers. And also a shout out to Mrs. Bean, my co-conspirator in all things most of the time. Our husbands can attest, not just at school, but in life in general. Always my partner in crime. And so I am so grateful to each of you for volunteering. If you found something useful in this today, if you found a little nugget or a little piece of advice that you found to be extra helpful, or something that you wrote down, send an email to one of these fabulous teachers who shared it and let them know how today has helped you and benefited you in this process. I will send out an email. I sent it out to all staffs earlier today with the frontline link. Go in and get your point. I mean, it's just 1 point, but it's still, they all add up. You need a ton of them anyway. So go in, get that point. But we are also doing this again on the 2nd of December. And that one again will be division wide. So we're going to bring in the Queens Lake middle teachers. We're going to bring in some tab middle teachers. And we're going to team YCSD this. We're going to make sure that this benefits everybody. I think that it was really powerful when our panelists even said, I wish I'd have talked to you before Monday. I wish I'd have known some of these things before we were in it. And we will know for next time that when we have major events like this, let's get together. Let's talk sooner rather than later. So even if you are a 6th grade teacher already living the hybrid life, come back on the 2nd, hear from other teachers. I know that our panelists will be scribbling down notes when we meet with those teachers as well. It's just a great time to collaborate and share with, when you've got YCSD teachers sharing, it is always great information and just such a good time. So again, thank you to our panelists, and everybody go get your frontline points and sign up for December 2nd. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Ms. Bean.
Thanks.
Have a good evening. Y'all are rock stars.